Hello, and welcome to Sekahan. Today we look at why Ukraine is striking the company known as Russia's Amazon, and what burning warehouses outside Moscow tell us about how modern wars are fought. Let's start with what happened in the skies over Russia in the 12 hours before dawn on August 16, 2026. Russia's defense ministry announced that its air defenses had intercepted 822 Ukrainian drones in a single night. And that same night, a huge logistics center burned outside Moscow, a facility belonging to Wildberries, Russia's largest online retailer. The company handles roughly half of all online shopping in Russia, and it is widely known as Russia's Amazon. Its warehouses have been under attack since mid-July, with more than 20 facilities hit so far. Ukraine says this network supplies the Russian military with equipment, and that is why it is a target. Not an airbase, not a weapons plant, a retailer's warehouses. Why has this become a battlefield? Here are the 3 questions we want answered today. First, why is a retailer and not a military base being targeted? Second, how can an attack still work even when most of it is shot down? And third, can hubs that were built for efficiency be defended at all? Let's begin by laying out exactly what happened that night. First, the scale of that one night. According to Russia's defense ministry, the attack ran for 12 hours from 8 in the evening on August 15th to 8 the next morning. Drones were engaged over more than 14 regions, including Moscow, Belgorod, and Rostov oblasts. Moscow's mayor said about 600 drones flew toward the capital. Note that the 2 figures, 822 and 600, come from 2 different Russian sources, and Ukraine has not said how many aircraft it launched. On the Russian side, 6 deaths were reported that night, including an elderly man killed when a drone struck a house. The facility that burned was one of Wildberries' largest, about 45 kilometers south of Moscow, roughly 250,000 square meters of warehouse. Ukraine's defense ministry publicly claimed the strike and confirmed this site was the target. Its stated reason: the Wildberries network is being used to supply the Russian military with drone components and other equipment. Wildberries and the Russian government both deny supplying the military. We will come back to that dispute in the analysis. Now, what exactly is Wildberries, and how big is the company under attack? Founded in 2004, it is Russia's largest e-commerce platform, handling about half of the country's online retail. Its 2025 sales were reported at roughly $75 to $79 billion, about 3% of Russian GDP. It runs 40 large warehouses and about 200 smaller ones with 5.2 million square meters of storage in total. And it operates roughly 98,000 pickup points across the country. Imagine one company owning both Amazon's fulfillment network and every parcel counter where packages are collected. That is how deeply this company is woven into daily life, and its warehouses are now being hit almost nightly. So after 1 month of strikes, how much has actually been destroyed? The campaign began on the night of July 17th to 18th, 2026. The company's total storage capacity is 5.2 million square meters. By early August, satellite-based reporting put the damage share at about 1.18 million square meters, roughly 1/5 of the total. These are press estimates based on satellite imagery, not confirmed figures from the Russian government or the company. There is a human toll as well. 13 employees were reported dead in the campaign as of August 12th. One caution, though, dramatic footage of burning warehouses and the actual health of the whole network are 2 different things. One more thing belongs in this picture. What happened in the other direction? The same night. Russian forces attacked targets across Ukraine. According to Ukrainian authorities, 7 civilians were killed and 51 injured. A major steel plant in the south was hit, killing 2 workers and halting part of its production. Strikes on the rear are not a one-sided story. Keep that in mind as we move to the background. Now some background: how Ukraine's long-range target set has widened over 4 years. In 2022 and 23, strikes deep inside Russia were rare. Railway sabotage and oil depots, a handful of cases a year. In 2024, refineries became a systematic target, 24 attacks in a single year by one American think tank's count. In 2025, the campaign reached export ports and oil tankers. And in July 2026, it arrived at Consumer Logistics, the warehouses of an online retailer. To be fair, this neat sequence is a pattern assembled after the fact, not the execution of a single master plan. Why can Ukraine afford to widen its targets? A big part of the answer is the price of one shot. Ukraine's long-range strike drone is reported to cost about $55,000 per unit, and it is reportedly mass-produced at around 100 units per day. Compare that with missiles. Ukraine's own Flamingo cruise missile costs about $600,000. An American Tomahawk runs about $3.5 million, and Russia's Zircon is put at $5.5 million. For the price of one cruise missile, you can build 100 drones and send them all in one night. Work that once required strategic bombers or cruise missile production lines has become radically cheaper. That is, the technical reason rear area strikes have become routine. This escalation is also connected to where the negotiations stand. As of mid-August 2026, there is no direct negotiating table between Russia and Ukraine. What is moving is indirect coordination, with the United States as intermediary. One concept reported in July is an air truce. That would halt missile, drone, and aircraft attacks on both sides, while the ground war continues. Officials describe both sides as having a motive. Ukraine is running short of interceptors, and Russia is exposed to these long-range strikes. But no official has been confirmed as calling the warehouse strikes negotiating leverage. Connecting the two remains an inference. Now let's look at how Japan reacted. On August 16th, Ukraine struck the warehouses of Wildberries, Russia's largest online retailer, and a giant logistics center burned outside Moscow. Ukraine says the network supplies the Russian military. The company denies it. In Japan, the news spread through a headline from the Nikkei, the country's leading business daily, 600 drones inbound toward Moscow. That single post drew over 2 million impressions, and most Japanese discussion started from this headline rather than from footage. The overall tone was support for Ukraine, mixed with a distinctly cold amusement at Putin's position. Criticism of the strikes was close to invisible in the widely shared posts, worth remembering as you read what follows. The most shared opinion post of the day was a joke, and it needs a little context. It reads, Putin, who they say fled all the way to Etarofu, because the drones can reach Moscow. There is nowhere left to run. Itarofu is one of the disputed islands north of Hokkaido that Japan claims as its northern territories, and Putin had made his first ever visit there just days earlier. Japanese users read the two events together, a president running out of places that drones cannot reach. It is a joke rather than an analysis, but it shows the frame in which the strikes landed for a Japanese audience. There was also one angle you would only find in Japan. One user posted footage of an earlier Wildberry strike and wrote, "This is St. Petersburg, the city the Japanese government is planning to send university students to. Think about how dangerous it is to go to Russia right now." The question here is not who is winning. It is whether a government-backed exchange program should still send students into cities where warehouses are burning. And a much smaller strand voiced a different worry. As long-range attacks become routine, one post argued, the nuclear risk that comes with them deserves more attention than it is getting. Posts like that were rare, but they mark the escalation concern sitting quietly under the jokes. These reactions are from X and do not represent Japanese public opinion at large. Now the analysis. Let's start with the second question. How can an attack work even when it is intercepted? A raid of several hundred drones is designed to do two things at once: arrive and drain the defender. The starting point is cheap mass, airframes at around $55,000 each, launched by the hundreds every night. The defender answers with surface-to-air missiles and fighter sorties, so every interception burns inventory and flight hours. To be precise, not every interception is expensive. Electronic warfare and cannon fire are cheap, so the cost gap widens and narrows from raid to raid. And when a raid spans more than 14 regions, the defender must choose: protect the capital, the refineries, or the logistics hubs. Then the few aircraft that slip through the gaps hit a 250,000 square meter facility. In this design, even the 800 drones that were shot down did their job. They consumed the defense. Next, consider how the meaning of Russia's vast size is shifting. In the Napoleonic Wars and in World War II, Russia's depth exhausted invaders because supply lines stretched as armies advanced. But a one-way drone that is finished when it falls has no supply line at all. The old mechanism, distance as attrition, simply does not apply to it. Size still helps the defender, of course. Longer warning times naturally disperse facilities. But the weak point has moved. The constraint is not territory. It is the number of fixed nodes to protect, multiplied by a finite stock of air defense. The more nodes you have, the thinner the same defense spreads. Vastness is turning into a long list of places to defend. The first question, why a retailer, is inseparable from another. Is striking civilian logistics even lawful? International humanitarian law gives no single answer. It asks three separate questions. Is the object a military objective? Is the harm proportionate? And were precautions taken? Ukraine says the Russian military procures drone components and night vision gear through this platform. An independent Russian outlet did find such listings, about $20 million worth of sales over 3 months. But against an annual turnover in the tens of billions of dollars, that is a very small fraction. And the company and the Russian government both deny supplying the military. Critics argue that if a fractional share of sales makes a whole network a military objective, the logic has no stopping point. Traces of military use can be found almost anywhere in a civilian economy. And the same reasoning already runs in reverse. On August 11th, Russia struck a sorting center of Nova Pochta, Ukraine's major logistics company, claiming it handled drone components. The justifications are nearly identical in form, though after 4 years of Russian strikes on Ukraine's power grid and ports, the two campaigns are not symmetrical in scale. Those are separate questions, and both deserve to be asked. Which brings us to the third question. Can hubs built for efficiency be defended? A 250,000 square meter warehouse delivers fast turnover and quick delivery in peacetime. In war, that same property becomes the amount you lose to a single impact. Refineries, export terminals, data centers. Every product of optimization is also a high-value target. The countermeasures are dispersal, more warehouses, multiple transport routes, cheap counter-drone systems, business continuity planning at national scale. But redundancy is pure cost, and in peacetime it looks like idle capacity. And this question travels far beyond Russia. Japan, for example, concentrates its ports, LNG terminals, refineries, and logistics centers along its coastline. Efficient in transport terms, and a short list of nodes where a great deal of national function is concentrated. Every optimized economy carries a version of this trade-off. Let's return to our three questions. First, why a retailer and not a military base? Ukraine's answer is that this network supplies the military. That claim is not independently verified, and the debate over where the line sits remains open. Second, how can an attack work even when intercepted? Because it is built to drain the defender's missiles, hours, and attention. Even the drones that fall have done their work. Third, can hubs built for efficiency be defended? Fully defending everything appears out of reach, which shifts the real question to whether a society can keep functioning after a hit. One closing thought. The places where a war is measured have multiplied. Alongside the number of towns taken, how many days a parcel takes, and what fuel costs are now read as part of the military situation. Delivery delays, insurance premiums, where air defense units get redeployed. Those are the markers to watch next. And remember the distinction. Holding a position and continuing to function after losing one are different problems, and only the second can be prepared in peacetime. From the age of efficiency to the age of redundancy, a thread that also runs through our video on the Red Sea blockade. You can find the full analysis and more Japanese reactions on our blog, linked in the description. Thanks for watching.